Folks, we've heard all about physical longevity. In fact, that's a big hot topic right now. All kinds of stuff being written about it, but I've never heard of financial longevity. And my guest today, Michael Merlin, is going to take us in some really cool places. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Kary. It's great to be here.
Listen, I know I'm your publisher, but I'm biased, but your numbers are crushing it. And in fact, I was looking at the numbers before, and I have to share with everybody super quick, because you'll see here that we have some bestsellers. Not bad, number one in investing. You can see my screen, Michael?
Yeah, I can see it.
And then we have financial risk management, number one, beating out The Richest Man in Babylon. Wow. 46,000 reviews. And then hey, not bad to beat out Napoleon Hill as well. So how do you feel, man? Like, your book just came out. It's already crushing it in so many categories. How does that make you feel?
Look, it feels great. I think that, the timing to talk about this topic is really good. I think, people are really focused on what's next. The popularity of health-related longevity books has exploded, as you know.
Yes.
And there's really nothing on the market right now that talks about the fact that, great, I've learned how to be healthier and to live longer, and I'm excited about that. But wait a second, all my financial planning has been based on me living a certain amount of time. But what if I live longer? How do I adjust? Or maybe I hadn't thought about that part of it. It's great that I could, maybe I have a secret sauce to live really healthy life till 100. But what if I don't have the financial resources to back me up? And so, I thought it was a really timely moment to really talk about the topics that really should be at the top of people's minds all the time when it comes to their financial planning. And, I think it just makes it even more focused when we talk about it in this, using this lens.
Well, I think you're onto something, because you can, if you're living to 60, you need a certain amount of income. If you're living to 70, the worst thing in the world, I think it's a really fear with a lot of people, is that you run out of money. And because the age is growing, and not just length, like, people that we read, Peter Attia, Peter Diamandis, you got David Sinclair, you got all these books on longevity, and they're not talking about suffering in your quality of life. They're talking about being healthy up till a long age. And so traveling at 70 or 80 is not crazy. So what does your book do for us as the reader to kind of like show us how age is great, but you need financial longevity too?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, a statistic I saw a long time ago was that, the worst stress that people feel is time pressure related stress. And related to that is like what you just said, the fact that they feel like, the hourglass has been turned over at some point. They've stopped working, they're living on either on Social Security or some other sort of fixed budget. And, oh my gosh, what if all those, projections we made about how long we're going to live don't pan out, or the returns we're going to get on our investments, and we feel like we're going to start running out of money. That stress is very hard to deal with. And so
I've seen it happen in people I love. And think about the other thing too of government. Right now in the headlines, Social Security is a big thing. It always was. Even when I was a kid, they were talking about like, hey, someday it's going to run out. But if your future is tied to a government regulation,
yeah,
that's a pretty scary place to be too.
Absolutely. I think, there's one of the things we talk about in the book is the ability to spend guilt-free. I don't think people think that way at all. I think when people think about spending, a lot of times they're thinking about it as, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Well, there's a part of your life where that should stop, where you should want to do it. The idea of going on a cruise or taking your family on a vacation, or, starting a second career, those should be things that you're excited about, not just things where you're checking a box. But I think because people are financially insecure, they don't feel that level of confidence. And what we try to do in the book is give them some real life steps that they can follow and some things to look out for. that
Mhm.
will keep them from being in that insecure place, right? That's where you really want to get. You mentioned Peter Attia or Mark Hyman or Casey Means, people writing these books about how to tell you how to live. They're not just telling you how to live longer, because you don't want to live longer and be miserable. You want to live
Mhm.
longer and be healthy. And the same thing goes with your finances. You want to live longer and be free with your money. You want to be able to do the things you want to do. You want to be able to spend the money you want to spend. You want to be able to enjoy that. So if you're going to live another 5, 10, or 15 years, you don't want those to be years where you're stressed. You want those to be years where you feel blessed that you have those years and that you're going to do some amazing things within those years. And you want to have the financial confidence to be able to pursue those things.
I know that you serve at an amazing place. It's literally, I'm there right now. It's we're going to bring up the website here, but it's Rockefeller Capital Management, correct?
Yes. So we have been very fortunate to be partners with the Rockefeller family and their family office now for over 5 years. It's a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful group of people to be around. And as you mentioned before, when you were showing, our bestseller results,
Yeah.
the Rockefellers are an iconic name, not just when it comes to wealth, because, to some people, I feel, they look at Rockefeller and they think, well, that's not attainable for me. And, the level of wealth that the Rockefellers have attained isn't always accessible to people. But what is very accessible to people are the best practices, the multi-generational passing on of wealth that they've done from generation to generation. The Rockefellers are now on the 8th generation of Rockefellers from John D. And so the idea that wealth can pass along really is the basis and foundation of good financial habits, right? The financial habits we talk about in the book, about being smart about using debt, about being smart about your investment philosophy, about avoiding exogenous risk factors. Like, those are things that the Rockefellers have done, for decades, for generations. And, those are the building blocks, no matter how complicated or simple your financial life is. These building blocks that we talk about in the book are the building blocks. They're the building blocks for a billionaire. They're a building block for someone who's just looking to get to $100,000 of savings. It's the same concepts.
So good. And that's rare. I mean, isn't that a rare statistic that 8 generations later, they are financially longevity? I mean, that they are an example.
Absolutely. The quote is always shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, meaning that even in successful families where wealth has been created, it's typically gone within 3 generations. And so, that's what we have always tried to avoid. Our biggest objective when we work with families and individual clients is, if they have the goal of leaving a legacy, we want them to be able to achieve that. And that legacy should go on for as many generations as they want. Because again, if you follow some of these, if you develop some of these good financial habits, and you follow some of these steps that we talk about in the book, there's no reason why people can't create legacies that go on for generations.
Wow. So I love this point that you say in your book. First of all, it's a fantastic book. I love everything about it. We're pumping out some really cool books, but I looked at this one and I'm like, that is a great cover. It's so good. I mean, it's classic, the $100 bill with the infinity symbol. But, tell us about this guy, Gregory Fleming. Let's just unpack, the title, the subtitle. Gregory Fleming, who's this guy?
So Greg Fleming is the president and CEO of Rockefeller Capital Management.
Wow.
And he has been he's literally an icon in the financial services industry. Greg has run private wealth management at Morgan Stanley, and he ran it at Merrill Lynch during the financial crisis. One of his many accomplishments was negotiating the orderly sale of Merrill Lynch to Bank of America during the financial crisis, and saved, a brand that had been around for over 100 years, which is now still around and extremely strong today, based a lot on the work that Greg did in an extremely stressful time. And Greg and I got to know each other over, we've known each other over the last 15 years or so. He's a great friend. He's a wonderful mentor. I've learned so much from him. And I was really honored when I asked him write the foreword for the book that he enthusiastically agreed to do that.
So good. And then increase your wealth span. I love that because we've all heard of health span, but I love this. Increase your wealth span. Spend money guilt-free and gain the confidence to enjoy your bigger future. I love threes. I love the 3 benefits, but those are huge. Why don't we unpack them one at a time? Are you literally saying that wealth span and health span are interlinked? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. You know, I think that the idea of creating coining the phrase, if you will, wealth span, was really as a complement to health span. You know, I think they go arm in arm. You know, I think for the same reason we don't say lifespan anymore, as we've learned, as you said, from reading a lot of these books that we mentioned earlier, because lifespan just talks about time. Health span really the quality of that time. You know, what is the quality of that time? And if the quality of that time, you want a long lifespan, but you want it to be healthy. And so the phrase health span, or the term health span, was coined. And we feel the same thing about wealth span. You know, people talk about, like you said, you know, if they've done any sort of preliminary financial planning, they get an analysis that shows, you know, it's got a big mountain graph on it, and it shows here's your accumulation and then here's your distribution, and you start to see that kind of go down in the later years. You know, we want that to be a very healthy looking graph. You know, we want that, even if it starts to move this way, we want it to kind of flatten out and kind of do this.
I love it.
People feel like, okay, I've got a lot of margin for error. I've got a lot of flexibility in my later years to do all the things we said, to travel, to be philanthropic, to start a second career, to help children build a business, whatever the case may be. That's what we want to, that's what we want to see. And that to me is wealth span, right? That's not just having the money to live your life. That's having the money to live your life where you have confidence, where you have, where you have wallet share, where you can use that money to do great things in the world. And you don't have the fear that by being bold with your spending, that somehow you're going to jeopardize that longevity. That's what wealth span means to me.
That's so good. I love it. That's huge. And now let's go to the second one. The second one, though, is spend money guilt-free. I know what you're saying. There's some people that, I mean, I'll put myself in that camp. Like, if you don't grow up with money, you almost get to this point where you go into this conservation mode. And it's really a bad relationship with money that I had to work through. You know, a little confession here. But if you are, if money was never, abundant, then you get into this conservation mode, which actually is a pretty bad relationship. I'm sure working with people, you've seen this type of inability to spend, and that's not healthy. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, one of the books I mentioned some references in financial longevity to some other books. One that I mentioned that I really, really like and recommend to many people is a book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Okay. And you know, the great thing about that book is that, to your point, Kary, it literally helps people unpack their relationship with money. Like, why do they feel the way they feel? Some people feel that money is intimidating. Other people feel that it's in short supply and they can't figure out how to get beyond that. Some people feel like it's dirty. Some people feel like it's unobtainable, right?
Here's one that I've seen recently. Some people feel like you have to be unethical to gain it.
Sure.
Because I don't know, because they don't deserve it. So they have to like swindle people. Have you ever seen that too?
Absolutely. We run into all kinds. You know, we had a client last year call us and say, look, you know, this money that we have as a family was generated by a family business. You know, it's got a legacy, a history, etc. My kids are embarrassed by it. You know, they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to talk about it. And the first thing I did was recommend that all his kids read The Psychology of Money. And then we sat down and had a conversation. And after that, I think they started to realize where that false sense was coming from, you know, why they were feeling that way. And it was more like, look, we didn't do this. This wasn't ours. So we kind of don't deserve it. And I said, okay, you know, sure, your grandfather was an amazing guy and he started an amazing business and your parents have grown that business. And if you don't have the desire to be in that business, that's fine. But what they want for you, you know, is for you to have the financial stability and the boldness, the confidence, the ability to spend, as we just said, guilt-free, to pursue the dreams that you do want to pursue. Or if you decide you want to be a high school basketball coach, that's wonderful, but this money will give you the ability to live a life maybe a little bit better.
Freedom.
Yeah. What you would do if you were just earning money as a high school basketball coach. And maybe you decide that because that money wasn't generated by you, you want to give a lot of it back. You want to be very philanthropic. You want to start a charity, or you want to, use that money to support other wonderful causes. That's fine. I just think it's very important for people to understand their relationship with money before they can have financial confidence and before they can get to a place where they can spend guilt-free.
So good, man. Wow. All right. And then let's go to the last one. He might be your mentor too, but he's certainly mine. Dan Sullivan talks about that confidence is the number one thing an entrepreneur needs to protect. And you see this. I mean, you see this. Oh man, if you're sitting there watching the headlines, you're never going to do anything as an entrepreneur. You're going to be so fearful. You're just going to hide underneath a rock and miss everything. And yet we know that that's not even true. So how can you have the confidence? How does financial longevity give you the confidence?
I totally agree with you. And I feel like confidence, or the lack thereof, is really the root cause of a lot of people's behavior, whether that's good behavior or bad behavior, productive behavior or unproductive behavior. A lot of it is underlied by confidence or a lack of confidence. And that comes with a lot of things. People have self-confidence challenges because of things that may have happened to them during their lives, and they have financial lack of confidence for the same reasons, right? Whether they always hit a ceiling when they got to a certain level of wealth, or they always hit a snag, or they always hit a tree always fell on their roof, or their car broke down.
Yes,
whatever the case may be.
I've heard.
As soon as they felt like they were getting to that place where they had a little bit of breathing room, and every time they hit that place, they would, it would knock them down. And it's the same thing they tell you about confidence in the other parts of your life. You're always going to face challenges, but you always have to get back up. When I started in my business, which was in the mid 90s, from, call it 1997 to 2007 or 2006, they called it a lost decade. There were so many bad things that occurred in that decade that even if you followed the steps we lay out in the book, and you were disciplined, and you saved every month, and you were investing and dollar cost averaging and doing all of those things, you were sticking with your investment plan, and it was a good quality plan. Over that 10-year period, you didn't get very far. And I'd have a lot of people who were, at that time, my age, in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, saying, why am I doing this? I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not getting anywhere.
But then if they get not confident and pull out, that's when they miss it, right?
That's right. And that's why, we talk a lot in the book, Kary, about the idea that you shouldn't do this alone. Another part of not having confidence is being by yourself and not having sounding boards and partners and, mentors and people that you can run things by, and people who can help talk you through those difficult periods. And that's why, it's really important that for people to succeed on their financial journey and for them to develop that financial confidence, they need partners. They need a good financial advisor. They need to be on the same page as their spouse, right? There needs to be a group. It's not a singular activity, just like anything else in life. I may be the one who did a triathlon, but I wasn't the only one who got me there, right? My physical therapist or my trainer or whatever the case may be. So you need a team around you to help you. And I think that level of collaboration also helps bring confidence. I also think, and you may have better examples of this than I do because you work with so many different successful entrepreneurs and authors. But I also think that getting through challenges also helps create confidence. My clients who went through that 10-year lost period, in the late 90s, early 2000s, because they made it through that and have had amazing success since, just getting through that challenging period gives you confidence and knowing that it can get bad, but you know that it's going to be okay because you've seen it, right? Yeah. So experience gives you that level of confidence as well.
I agree. My wife's a counselor, and in the counseling field, they call it exposure therapy, where the one thing you're scared of, you start exposing yourself to it in small, controllable amounts, and you build that tolerance where you become unstoppable. You bring up a good analogy, though. I've never shared this story, but I remember being in Cleveland. My dad and I had just bought tickets to the national championship for wrestling, and we were going to leave a round early. So, you know, you get like tickets for like 6 rounds or something. So we had a round left, and we go out on the street, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, I bet you I can sell these, you know, and we'll just go home early," because he wanted to go home early. So anyway, you know, a guy comes up and he's like, "I'll offer you 50," and I'm like, and I'm like, "No, that's too low," because it was really just too low. And I started to walk away, and the guy's like, okay, I'll give you 100 for both. All right, whatever, you know, whatever, however the math worked, you know, or something like that. And I'm like, sounds good. And so I sold it. And then my dad's like, wow, man, you know, I would have just taken that 50 for both, you know, instead of 100 for both. And it got me thinking, like, nothing against my dad, but he had to really go through a lot of battles with money, you know? And so when you just nailed it, your story got me thinking, but like, when you have the confidence to be able to walk from bad deals too, or bad, I'm sure, you know, like, I don't know what you'd call it, but like financial plans, that's a big thing. You know, who was it that said, "I'll never forget the amount of money I made on the deals I didn't do."
Mhm.
Like the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to lower my standards just to get this little bit of money. Have you seen that happen too?
Absolutely. You know, we definitely think to ourselves. I mean, there's always going to be times where you pass up a good deal, you
Mm.
know, but I'm always fine passing up a good deal as long as I don't take advantage of a bad one.
Ah,
And
that's good.
I think that's, you know, I think that's important for people. You know, that's why, you know, like we talk about in the book, you know, it's really important that you focus on quality when
Mm.
you are thinking through how you're going to set up your personal financial habits. You know,
Yep.
everything you want to do should be surrounded by quality, whether you're hiring a quality advisor, whether you're taking on quality content to help educate yourself. You know, one of the I saw a great podcast, or it was actually, I think, a YouTube video. It's a New York Times bestselling author, and he talked about the difference between successful and unsuccessful people. And
Mm.
the difference basically is that unsuccessful people stop at some point, and successful people always keep going. And when
Wow.
he said that, he said, you know, if you don't have a skill, or you don't have a talent, or you don't have a resource, a lot of people, that's it. But the successful people, they push through, they find the talent, they create the skill, or they obtain the resource. And you know, I think the same thing applies here, where we're trying to give people that resource. A lot of people don't have these resources. You
Mm.
know, the irony in our business, right, is that the highest quality financial advisors work with the wealthiest people. So
Oh,
those,
yeah.
those who are looking for high quality advice when they're starting out, or those who have had challenges, like you said, along the way, but now they're realizing, wow, I may live a lot longer, and maybe I still have time to change, you know, flip the script and do a better job with my financial planning. Those people typically don't have access to the highest quality investment products or the highest quality advice. And so, you know, one of the things we're trying to do with the book is to give people at least a guide to
Yeah.
help them find those high quality resources. Because again, I think that's really where the beginning of all of this starts.
So good. I love it. So you're really, with Rockefeller, with all you're doing, you're basically saying, look, the ultra wealthy aren't the only ones who need these tips, tricks, tools.
No,
It's really for everybody. And that's what Financial Longevity book is doing. Is that
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, like I think, as I said before, you know, what we're trying to help ultra wealthy families do is find smart ways to pass that wealth along to next generations while they do wonderful things in the world and give back and live the lives they want to live.
Mm.
And also educate those next generations to be prepared to receive that wealth, so that wealth can continue to pass on beyond the 3 generations, you know, that we talked about before. But
I
as I
love it.
said, those habits and those strategies that we use to do that are the same habits and strategies that someone starting out needs to adopt in order to start building wealth. And so, you know, those habits are the same. The things to look out for, as we talk about, we call it in the book, the 3 financial diseases, like those things, the things to look out for, the things to do, the 4 financial priorities we talk about in the book. All of that is universal. It
Mm.
doesn't matter whether you got your first job, you just started, or
Yeah.
whether you've been struggling with your, you know, financial investment savings for decades. Likely there is a gap in your financial habits somewhere that hopefully some of the strategies we provide in the book will help solve.
Besides getting the book, and I love that it's an ebook, hardcover, softcover, and audio. So that's awesome. All you audio fans out there get it. But besides getting the book in those versions, what if people say, you know what, this is making a ton of sense. I'm sure you have to have, vetted people just because you can't work with everybody's portfolio. But what if somebody is interesting? Do they email? Do they call? Is this kind of the next steps?
Sure. Well, so a couple of things. One, for those who are just looking for more financial education, they can go to the website associated with the book, which is financial-longevity.com. And on there, we've put a free 8-module financial education curriculum, runs you through everything from budgeting to through investing and everything in between, how to think about taxes, et cetera, et cetera. That's a valuable program that we sell. But for those who buy the book, it'll be on the website for free.
Fantastic.
And then in addition, we're going to create a community there as well, where people can sign up if they want, again, some objective advice. Hey, I'm trying to think through different insurance options and I'm not really comfortable with what I'm seeing. Can you give me some advice? We're going to start that as well. So those things are in development. Over the next couple of weeks, they'll be up on the website. The module, we just have to put up the link and the community we're building as we speak. For those who are interested, who are maybe at a higher level and looking for more, at Merlin Wealth Management, we have obviously a minimum size client that we work with, but absolutely go to our website, send a request, let us know what we're looking for, and we'll get back to you.
So good. Folks, he blew my mind today. Michael Merlin, financial longevity. It really is so important. You can't grow in your health span without your wealth span. You need both. And so, Michael, thanks for sharing. Thanks for writing this book. And thanks for all you do philanthropically as well. I mean, I see even on the Amazon page there how you're bringing financial literacy to all kinds of those in need. So thanks for all you're doing, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kary. And just so people know, the proceeds from the book do go to a nonprofit to help create more content for financial education at colleges and high schools. So we're going to continue to do that good work as well.
I love it. Get the book today, folks.